no one who puts their hand to the plow and turns back is fit for the kingdom of God? As a youth, I will say my best friends were great athletes. Baseball and basketball players in particular. David and Sean could beat me at any sport. I am not a physically intimidating person, and I was never particularly great at sports without a great deal of work, which you always have to put a great deal of work into. But the sports that I did gravitate to always were about being too stubborn to stop. So I remember the first time I did a century bicycle ride when I was 11 years old, riding 100 miles in a single day. Because I may not be faster, but I can tell my body to be quiet, I'm going to keep pedaling. And though boys weren't supposed to compete in it, I was great at the flexed arm hang. Pull-ups, 1.5. But sitting there and holding on and letting myself feel the pain but not let go, I could do that for minutes. So I already said I was a cyclist, and my dad and I was always intimidated at riding on roads because I have an aversion to being hit by vehicles. And one of the things I learned early on about riding a bike is that if you are riding a bike and you look right, which way are you going to go? Left. And if you look left, you're going to go right. And if you look backwards, you're going to fall. When you put hand to the plow and look back, you will not plow a very straight course. That's just a literal truth. And though Luke is having fun and Jesus is having fun with us, because we should very clearly be hearing last week's text, right? What happens when Elijah goes to Elisha and says, I'm here to call and ordain you to be the prophet in my stead? Do you remember? Elisha is plowing with oxen, and he wants to say goodbye to his father and mother, and then he kills the oxen and creates a nice big meal and says goodbye. And we talked about this as letting go of this claim that holds him to his family so that he could dedicate his life to becoming Elijah 2.0. Luke and Jesus are very clearly flashing back to this moment. Jesus, who has just earlier in Luke talked about being called Elijah. Jesus, who we talked about in Malachi, was for many of them the Messiah that was to come, which in Malachi was to be Elijah returned. And yet Jesus is ramping up, as Jesus so wonderfully does throughout his ministry, the instance of Elijah and Elisha. And he says, no, you can't look backwards and plow forwards. If you're going to be here now be here. But if you're going to look backwards, then that's where you need to be. One of the realities, and I've spent a week about the things they don't teach you in seminary, but one of the things they do not teach you about in seminary is the challenges of, and this is not limited to clergy, but it is almost always true of clergy, of the challenges of what it means to leave home for your sense of calling. To take on the relationship network of a community of faith, and quite literally, this being my own limitation, have no energy left at the end of the day for the mom and the dad and the sisters that miss their son who went away. I feel the challenge of this text in a way that many years into ministry, it was actually probably about 2 years into being here, that I realized, oh, this is the challenge of looking back and walking forward. And I can't be all things to all people. Flashback to freshman year in college. At the time, I was a math major, secondary ed math major. I did not, due to family history, choose to drink alcohol until like almost my senior year in college. So freshman year was hilarious to me because that wasn't true of all my freshman classmates. And part of my journey in leaving behind becoming a math major and high school math teacher was the great joy I had with a professor of cultural anthropology. And I realize now that I was doing that before I even knew, because I would spend every night in the hallway of my freshman hall like an anthropologist studying a village, listening to so-and-so moan down the corner on yet another Friday night that they would never drink again. In fact, it sort of hit my personality where I am the definition, certainly I was that year, of the guy who had fear of missing out. Not to go to a frat party, which literally is my definition of hell, but of missing out on any of these weird ethnographical situations. And so I stayed up until 5 a.m. every single day. In fact, I would pretty regularly go to my 8 a.m. classes without having slept. Then I would sleep and do my afternoon classes because I didn't want to miss anything. Every parent in the room is already thinking to themselves, I'm sure that did your grades a lot of help. You cannot look back and move forward. You can't be in all places at once. And if you try, then you are never here now. Part of the cost of discipleship, to borrow the phrase popularized by Dietrich Bonhoeffer, is that you have to give up the fear of missing out when you make a life commitment to follow in the way of Jesus Christ. All options are no longer available to you. When you decide to sing in the choir, that's a commitment that has you here every Wednesday night and every Sunday morning, or close enough. And when you make that commitment, it means that if someone else comes up to you and says, I've got 2 tickets to the Lakers game, I don't know why I chose them, 2 tickets to the Lakers game for Wednesday night, you want to go? You say, oh, I'm already busy. Don't you, Ryan? Totally, right? Fundamentally, you cannot do all things. And part of what happens in this lined up, like, y'all, if this is not Semitic hyperbole, this text is really funky. It's like Jesus walking down a road and being like, no, 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 right? But they line these things up right as Jesus sets his face to Jerusalem. Right as Jesus says, don't invest in the Samaritan's rejection. Just keep moving. Right? You're gonna get rejected. Keep moving. Our commitment is this. Don't worry about that. It's why in the next text over in Luke 10, Jesus is going to send out the 70 and say, if a house doesn't welcome you, knock the dust off from your feet and keep moving. Don't let it cling to you. Don't obsess about what didn't work out. Keep your face aimed at Jerusalem. You can't do all things. Fear of missing out is a commitment to commit to nothing. And Jesus comes to us with a different way. Be here now. Choose the ways you want to let your life speak, and choose it reflectively enough that you'll be happy with the decisions you make. I recently, and I've talked about this before with mission, there are a million great mission projects. We can't do all of them. What we do is we have a framework to say, this is what we feel called to do. And when something comes to us, we say, does this meet with what we're facing? And if it doesn't, we say, that's a great idea. It's just not going to happen here. And we keep moving. Not that that was bad. It's not bad. It's not good. It's different. We cannot do all things. And so we have to make choices. And our commitments help us to frame the ethics around which we make those choices. We talked about this in January when we said, let's do a values audit of our life. Do the places you spend time and the places that you spend money and the people that you spend time with and the things that you are doing, do they preach what you want preached? When John's disciples come to you and say, are you a Christian? What will you point to and say, look at that, look at that, look at that? You tell me. The answer isn't yes or no. The answer is, what does your life speak about the things to which you are committed? And engaging the reality of the cost that you can't say yes to all of it. Anyone who puts hand to the plow and looks back is going to create a very messy field. This is the word of the Lord.